Over the past 3.5 years, Stepford County Railway has changed from being this to being this. 3 years of development standards really improves the game a lot, even if it is only roadblocks. It's certainly not up to standards with Train Sim World 2. For this video, I had the idea of ranking all the major SCR updates from worst to best and giving my honest opinion on each of them. Let's get right into it. Enjoy the video. Out of all the major SCR updates, 1.2 was certainly the least eventful. It included the new Whitefield branch and some bug fixes, and that's pretty much everything, along with 4 routes to accommodate the new branch. The branch to Whitefield was a never-open branch that was planned for Metro, and it sat idle for months before finally being used by Connect. Interestingly, the community thought that this update would be the extension to Lynn by the Sea, as the sneak peek of Whitefield Leader looked very similar to the original platform layout of North Shore. The annoying thing about this update was that Stepford High Street and Whitefield both remained exactly the same. They were both upgraded later, which essentially showed how lazily this update was made. It was a small and uneventful update, and that's why it ranks lowest on my list. Oh yes, the update that began the era of the interior fleet of trains. It introduced the Class 158 for Connect and the Class 508 for Waterline, both having fully furnished interiors, animated doors, and working interlock lights. Although, there were several problems with these trains. Some of the parts were very glitchy, the seats were unrealistic, the info boards weren't working, and even the liveries looked pixelated and rushed. I've ranked this update so low because of the huge number of problems with the new trains. The reason it isn't in last place because it would eventually convert the entire fleet, and its standards for interiors would come to improve. Update 1.5 took place about a year ago from now, and it introduced the brand new guard roll. It was certainly a silence breaker, as the lead up to 1.4 was so huge and everything suddenly got much quieter. Guarding was pretty simple. It placed between dispatcher and signaller with a few roll colour changes, and it allowed you to ride in the back cab of people's trains and interact with dispatchers, adding more realism to the game and adding some more immersive experiences. The problem with this update, however, is how insignificant it will become in the future. Nowadays, the guard roll is another rank in the system which everybody's used to. The only other major thing about 1.5 was that paper trains were finally made redundant, and Connect and Waterline finally got rebrands courtesy of the new head of brand design, TPX_JM. That's a firm 6th place from me. From the community's point of view, this update was definitely the most chaotic update in the history of the game. It released 4 months after the schedule, and the map ended up getting completely leaked just over a month before release. Despite this, let's talk about the actual update. It introduced Lynn by the Sea and the new express operator, which ran straight from Stepford to Lynn via Benton, with very few stops. The new scenery between Edgemead and Lynn by the Sea was extremely well made apart from a few sections, and Westercoast was considered the best part of the entire game for a while. Express, on the other hand, was very rushed. There were only 2 trains, a blocky Class 43 and a copy and pasted Class 801 from the Air 802. The livery was also very pixelated and didn't make much sense. Also, some part of the route, such as the section between Benton and Leighton, barely had any scenery improvements and didn't fit the newer style of the game at all. Because of the chaos, and the fact that Express was clearly rushed, 1.4 is in 5th place. This was definitely the update with the most features. It released shortly after a Christmas calendar of sneak peeks, and after 8 months of development time. It added several new trains on all the operators, a new 6-stop branch to Morganstown, a new 3-stop branch to Stepford Victoria, and a new station at Edgemead. Most importantly, it added the Airlink line, including a Class 185 and SCR's first high-speed train, the Class 802. This highly anticipated update was clearly huge. The development standards were excellent at the time, even if standards will be much higher later. Ellesmere Junction is from 1.1 and it looks horrible as an example. It scores higher than 1.4 because the standards for the update were lower, and there was no expectation for stations worthy of modern 1.7. Version 1.6 was an update with mostly random features in my opinion. Not only did it add some new trains and line extensions, but much of the scenery around Stepford City was redesigned, multiple stations across the network were upgraded, and so many behind the scenes issues were fixed, such as the old part streamer and some GUI timings. All these random features, however, were completed to a high standard for the game at the time, such as the Class 720 in its third version of Next Gen. It introduced the waterline extension to Morganstown, finally giving a use to the shuttle bridge, and a Connect extension to Willowfield, as branches off of City Hospital and Financial Quarter. The extension to Willowfield has some very well modelled stations, though the scenery did lack quite a lot in some areas, particularly before Hempden Park Station. It was a fruitful and interesting update, and for me that's why it ranks above most of the other updates. April 2018, the first of these game-changing updates. This particular one took SCR out of its beta stages and fully released the game after 5 months of being public on Roblox. The transition from pre-1.0 to 1.0 felt like the game was being deleted and remade, with a few features kept. Sure, you could still drive, walk around and do certain jobs, but in much more of an organised and sophisticated way. The menu was recreated, timetables were added, you could properly stop at stations, Autoline extended to Connolly, Winthrow was made redundant and replaced with Leighton, and so much more happened in this update. Sure, it was made in the same standards as 1.1, but again, it didn't need to be that high, as many of the 1.0 features are still exactly the same today, and they still work just as fine. Excellent update, second place overall. The crab rave plays as loudly as possible as SCR releases its version 1.7 update, the newest of all the updates on the list. Yes, it certainly fits the description of the best update in the game so far. It didn't only add new menu music, it added a new station at Upper Staplow, a countless number of upgrades to the scenery, particularly around the Ellesmere to Leighton stretch, completely recreated the manual signalling system with working CCTV and much more information about specific trains, introduced some mesh model trains with much more realistic exteriors and interiors, and the ability to drive express via the newly modelled Morganstown. As you can see by the sneak peeks I'm showing you here, it's absolutely amazing compared to the 1.1 sneak peeks, even if it's still barely up to the standard with some other games. There isn't much to say other than it was one of the updates with the most features, and in my opinion, it had better development quality than all the others. That's all of them, all the major SCR updates ranked and put into a list. Please keep in mind that this is all entirely my own point of view, and if you should have a different opinion, then you can feel free to mention it in the comments. I'll be interested in reading them. Anyways, that'll be the end of the video, so stay safe and have a great day. Goodbye.